Uber taxi drivers of Reddit, what is the weirdest conversation you overheard your passengers having? I drove a bus, but I think this still applies. Some girl was talking on the phone about a guy she was with and how he kept putting it in the wrong hole and she didn't know if he was lying to her about it being an accident. The first time I ever used Uber, I was in St. Louis on vacation with my wife. We have never been there and weren't really familiar with the city. Anyways, we are driving with this guy who I think was from the Middle East heading into downtown when we saw the arch. We both started talking about it and were excited that we were so close. The Uber driver starts telling us facts on the arch. The arch was constructed in France and delivered here as a token of friendship in 1844. I look at my wife with a questioned look and he continues, a lot of people don't know that. That is why it faces exactly east towards the Statue of Liberty. Now we both know that this guy's completely full of shit. We let him continue because, well, it was fun. It's amazing that when it first came over here, the elevator was built inside of it and it was hand driven by 15 men at a time by using a pulley system. We still have no idea if this guy was ducking with us or if he actually believed what someone once told him. 2 drunk dudes I picked up coming out of a San Antonio Spurs game. Nice enough guys. I even stopped and went through the Whataburger drive-thru for them. After the initial chit chat they settled in and started talking random stuff. Then they start talking about one of their bachelor parties which sounded like had happened pretty recently. Normal drunk bro type talk about the strippers and drinking and how their buddy brought way too much blow. Say what now? Then the story gets pretty graphic with the bachelor talking about blowing coke off the strippers and the strippers blowing coke off of him and then blowing him and then having a threesome. Then he starts talking about how he's been ducking the stripper on the side ever since the bachelor party but how after he gets married he's totally going to straighten up. I'm pretty sure they had totally forgotten that I was even there until I pulled up at their apartment to drop them off. Got a $20 tip and a chocolate milkshake from Whataburger. 2 Pikachu cosplayers planning to beat someone up. I was neither the driver nor the passenger in this situation, but my friends and I witnessed the whole thing. It's not a conversation per se, but it's still the best thing I've witnessed involving taxis or Ubers. I grew up and still live in a pretty well-known college party town. My buddies and I have been hanging out at my friend's house, drinking some, and decided to head down to this place to get some late night burritos. By then it was getting close to 2 AM when the bars would close. So we get there, some of us get food, some don't. We all perch on the ledge of the big window in front of the restaurant. This place was on the corner of a real busy intersection at the heart of a neighborhood that's entirely students. A popular student bar was directly across the street from us, and we noticed this 60-plus-year-old woman in a really short skirt floating around the door to this bar. Soon, people start trickling out when the bar closes. It becomes clear she's trying to snag a young buck who's too drunk to know better. This goes on for a few minutes until the last group of guys comes filtering out, and they have a straggler. She bags him. We can see the dude can barely stand. A cab pulls up and she pulls open the door to let the poor guy climb in first. Then, before she can climb in, the cab driver speeds off and makes a fast U-turn in the intersection. The windows were all down in the cab so we can actually hear the passenger screaming as they circled around us passed by us. "What are you doing?" the cab driver shouted back. "I'm doing you a favor." Meanwhile the lady is chasing after the cab waving her hand in the air as if he accidentally forgot her. We just sat there for a second amazed the driver did the guy such a solid. Me and a friend play this game that whenever we get a taxi we have the most ridiculous conversations ever, in as serious a tone as possible. Favorites are comments like, "I know he's my brother, but he's also the father of my child. And if my mum can be in a committed relationship with him for years then so can I, and I still don't think it counts as murder. He was really annoying. And it's not like anyone could ever find the body. I think I just did the world a favor." I was the Uber passenger and the driver scooped me and a friend up. We were riding and he said, "Sorry guys, I'm in a conference call," and had a head price in. We were like, "No problem man," and we just talked to ourselves, but he would chime in and chat with us. Toward the end of the ride he say, "Sorry, I have to chime into the meeting." Now I was thinking he would say some business stuff like fourth QTR projections are down or something. He said, alright everyone, we need to calm down, this isn't the first time someone has killed themselves in our organization. It's a shame what happened to Frank, but we need to get out in front of this and put our PR team on this. I just looked at my friend like WTF, and then the dude dripped us off. I wasn't the driver, but the passenger. I got in the taxi I ordered from the train station to my house, and there was a small carnival we drove past. The taxi driver and I had been chatting, the usual small talk, when he is working to etc. And suddenly we passed this carnival and the guy started talking about how they were shutting the carnival down as 2 7-year-olds had been kidnapped the day before, and the police had no leads, and how it's horrific to think that still happens, and he doesn't even want to think of the poor girls. Got home and looked into it. None of this happened, nor had it ever in the town's history. Passenger, not a driver. The best taxi ride I ever got was from a Sikh driver, from San Francisco to SFO airport, about a 15-minute ride. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and the guy was an absolute scream like a stand-up comic, almost Robin Williams pace, funny observations on traffic, flying, families, I was with my wife and kids, etc. I wish I'd been able to record it. I wondered at first if he was on Drew Gus, but I don't think Sikhs do that. Best ride ever. My friend is an Uber driver. He picked up a fare in Atlantic City, at one of the casinos, 4 AM on a Sunday morning, headed to Nick. 2 middle-aged guys, trashed, dressed well, but their clothes were a little messy and they had no luggage. On the way up they told my friend about how they had been there since Thursday, and were gambling and clubbing and cheat. Well, about 2 hours into the 3-hour drive, the one guy interrupts the other guy's rant about whatever and says, with a shocked face, "Oh no, we forgot Stephanie," and the other guy goes, "What? Oh shit, we left her at." "Oh no. I dunno, where is she, my buddy?" The driver said, "Oh no, not Stephanie. Should we go back for her since, you know, that would just about triple his fare?" But they didn't want to go back. The one guy called her, and she answered, still at the bar they left her at. She had lost track of time and thought they were at the bar, or gambling at the casino. All 3 of them had gone down to AC together, so the 2 guys asked my buddy to go get her after he dropped them off. He said she should probably just call for another Uber, but he gave them his number and would pick her up if she called. They tipped him well. Stephanie never called. Lift line. 2 girls, one trying to convince the other to sleep with her single dad as a favor to her. Me and the driver just looked at each other. Wait, so you were part of their ride or just hanging with the driver? Lift line cheaper but might pick up passengers. They got picked up. I was in the front seat as they discussed this. I was an Uber driver for about a week. I had this lady get into my car and I could tell something was wrong. I asked her how she was and started her trip. Soon after she got into my car, someone was calling her. She was MFing a storm up about her broker's boyfriend. Then was fired up, saying that he didn't come home last night with her new car. He's meeting with his probation officer this morning. He can't miss it. I start to realize that I'm driving this chick to go look for her car because her shitty boyfriend stole it. As I arrive to the municipal building, she's telling me I can pull over wherever. My city is medium size, but the parking is all over the place. This poor woman was late for work because of her deadbeat boyfriend. I could not let her walk around aimlessly looking for her car. So I offer her 10 minutes of my time to drive around looking. As we are driving, she's telling me all about this scumbag. She's trying to call him, leaving him voicemails. Finally this dude calls back. They are yelling at each other. He was trying to tell her that he was getting her tire fixed because of a rock. Afterwards I'm feeding her Miss Independent alter ego, telling her she deserves better, he won't ever change. About 8 minutes goes by and we find her car. We started hooting and hollering. I pull up in front of her car and wait to make sure it's hers. She unlocks her car, opens the front door and quickly slams it. I see this chick run to the back seat, open the door and then start beating someone up. In my head I'm like, oh dude, you deserve that shit. As watching in awe, I see her drag another chick out of the car by her hair. Shit was crazy. I still get this weird adrenaline rush thinking about it. I'll never forget that look Miss Independent has when I asked how she was. She nodded, got into her car and drove off. Shared a cab ride with two women in their 20s. Was getting late, wanted to get a cab home but was a bit pricey after midnight. Agreed with two strangers that's we'd split the cost. Their entire conversation for 30 minutes was yeah followed by yeah, and they weren't even drunk or on any drugs I could smell or tell from their physical signs. They were Australian, if that helps. 3 that stick out. I gave a ride to a large Jamaican man who was on his phone the whole time with his earbuds in so he could gesticulate wildly, and constantly referred to himself in third person. He was a rapper, and the whole time he was talking with someone about how awesome he was and how he turned down a $400,000 recording contract because it wasn't enough, and how in 3 years he would be dating Rihanna. I looked him up afterwards and found a couple articles from 2 or 3 years earlier about him being a promising rapper, but nothing since then and certainly nothing indicating he was anywhere close to getting big. I had one guy who was taking a couple calls from a Craigslist that he put up. He said something about how his aunt worked for an insurance agency, and if they signed their name on this life insurance policy, they would get a check and they could split it with him once they cashed it. After 2 or 3 of them declined, he asked me if I was interested and I told him I didn't want to commit whatever kind of fraud he was proposing. I thought about trying to report him to whatever bureau covers that, but his plan seemed so stupid he probably got caught anyway. I picked up this high schooler who, after a couple minutes, started talking about how he had gotten arrested, completely unprovoked. He was quick to point out that it wasn't anything violent, it was for white-collar crimes. What? He starts telling me how he got busted on tax evasion from selling gums or something. The whole time, I felt like this was a weird thing to unload on your Uber driver. Then on the way, we had to stop by a bank so he could deposit a check or something. He said it would only take 30 seconds. After significantly more than 30 seconds had passes, I started to get concerned. His mom had requested the ride, and I didn't even know his name. Was I the getaway driver or something? After a couple minutes of looking around and listening for police sirens, he comes out normally. There was traffic the rest of the ride, and I wanted nothing more than to drop this kid off and get out of here. He kept talking about how he's not a bad person, and didn't hurt anyone. But eventually I dropped him off and had to take a minute to compose myself. I feel like there's a good chance he was ducking with me, and later while hanging out with his friends was like lol, I totally convinced my Uber driver that I was some kind of psychopathic criminal, but it was a very unsettling experience. Passenger, but my mom and I had a conversation about her job once that resulted in us telling the Uber guy about the time she hit a shark in the face with a bag full of fish. I think that's his answer to this question. So, I used to drive a van service for my university, which was mainly boring, but sometimes got interesting on the weekends when people were getting shit-faced. Anyhow, I'm cruising down a side street one quiet afternoon shift, when this huge dude steps out and signals me. He's standing there with 4 of his friends, all of whom are equally giant, and was asking if I could take them across campus. Now, even though I had only talked to the dude for a few seconds, it was clear he was high out of his mind, and that his friends were even further gone. Also, did I mention they were in costume as the village people? Because they were. So, naturally I think this is too good to pass up, and I'll let my dispatcher know I'm taking an unplanned pickup. Meanwhile, these 4 massive guys, seriously, all of them were at least 6 feet, start folding themselves into the tiny van seats. As we pull out, one of the guys starts freaking out, and is telling his buddies he drank too much, and thinks he's going to die. Now, he didn't look that bad, but I was in no mood to clean puke off the floor. Fortunately he's relatively sober, told me all was well, and reminded his buddy that he had been drinking O'Doul's, non-alcoholic beer, for those of you who don't know. Now, I'm relieved, but the uber high dude behind me is having trouble processing the fact that he's not about to meet his maker. He knows he drank a lot, and that it tasted like beer, so the idea that he might not be drunk isn't sticking. He and his buddy have this fantastic back and forth, That starts with an explanation of how you can make beer without booze, and ended with some borderline heartfelt assertions of bro love. Now, I'm struggling not to lose my shit throughout this whole exchange, but things were starting to calm down as I pulled over to drop them off. It was as they were getting out of the car that one of the other guys, up until this point passed out in the backseat, chimed in, "Wait, why the duck did we buy a rack of oodles?" I'm not the driver, but once me and a couple of friends were in a taxi after drinking pretty heavily, and somehow we ended up having a full-blown ducking argument over whether 9/11 was an inside job or not. Driver had to calm us down. Not a driver but a passenger. My girlfriend and I were getting dropped off at Disney World and were having the usual small talk. The driver mentioned he was from Cuba and I said I'm part Cuban. That's where it all took off. He proceeded to tell me all about his religion. I'm still not sure what it was, but my family is Catholic and I think he was somewhere in that ballpark. He said he was a sorcerer and showed off all his dragon rings and talked about the mystical powers of some saint. He said his ex-wife was a voodoo witch and did all kinds of weird shit and they had to get divorced. He played some kind of chant sounding thing from his phone, but I don't speak Spanish so I didn't know what it was. Then he wished us a good time at Disney and we were on our way. I was the passenger, but whatever. Got in an Uber and started chatting with the driver. It was the 1-year anniversary of his son's death and he didn't have anyone to talk to here. He was a single dad and immigrant. The whole conversation was just heartbreaking. I took his number and we chatted a bit after. Ducking sucked. I was the passenger in this case. My boyfriend and I got picked up from the train station. When the lady asked where we came from, we told her about our trip, how I love Stephen King, and my boyfriend planned out an awesome creepy trip for my birthday staying at the Stanley Hotel in room 217. We told her some of the creepy things we saw and things that happened, and the lady told us that the paranormal voodoo stuff is real. She used voodoo to heal her ex-husband. I didn't know what I got myself into. He was a bad guy, I don't regret it, but 2 weeks after I stabbed his doll in the heart he died from a heart attack. He was a perfectly healthy guy. I've never touched that stuff again. It was the perfect ending to a creepy trip. Took an Uber from San Jose to San Francisco. For those of you that don't know, that's about an hour drive. 20 minutes into the ride, the Uber driver takes a call from her life coach to talk about how she wanted to have a polygamous with her fiance but he wasn't into it. My friends and I sat in silence as we listened to this girl talk about how she wanted to duck another dude for 20 minutes, and how it was her husband's fault for her not reaching her full potential. Sheet was awkward, man. As passenger, in cab to Lax, driver was from Russia. This was 2011. Basically took me through how Putin was responsible for everything going on in the world. At the end of the ride, he goes, "And don't forget, Putin." It was hilarious, but he was dead serious. Am not a driver myself, but once using Uber Pool, you know what it is. Coming back from a late shift at work, I was in the front seat, by the driver, and there were 2 guys in the back seat. I heard these 2 guys in the back seats talking about a theft they made in the day before. I tried to keep my cool. I noticed the driver heard that too, so he had that offended look in his face. Those guys' destination was before mine. They landed, thanked the driver and everything, said goodnight to me and all that. After I got home, I thought okay, those guys were ducking with us, talked about it on purpose, but I never knew, so